Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, December 11th, 2023, not 2024. And this is episode 826 of Living Free in Tennessee. We had a little bit of an audio problem at the start. It's because I didn't press the big red button because the big red button flashed when I plugged my mic in. But apparently it was just telling me it was plugging in. It was not telling me it was on. So I was muted. And I talked to you in great detail about this new hair thing I have. So I want to show that to you. If you're on the live video, there's a hair claw. It's like what are those things called? I don't remember what they're called. Anyway, it's a hair claw that you can get from Amazon or other places. And if you have super long hair, like my hair is longer than my waist, it'll hold your hair way better than anything else except for my hair claw. Like those of you who've met me in person, you know I have a hair claw. And it comes in from both sides. This is just a single, there's a word for it that it's escaping me right now because I'm live on the podcast, and the word for what this is, it's not really a claw. So the claw has like two sides that will grasp my bun from two sides. This one, you just stick it in and it holds it. It's not as tight as that, but it's a whole lot more comfortable. Like when I wear the hair claw, it hurts my scalp after all day. And I've noticed as my hair gets really longer that it's harder to have it up without it hurting over time. And so I wonder, ladies, if your hair is below your waist or longer, what are you doing to put your hair up and stay comfortable and keep it from like flying everywhere? Because when you're working, you don't necessarily want your hair down to your knees or whatever. Mine is not down to my knees, but it's down to my rear end at this point. And it's added a different level of challenge. So combs, that's the thing. So this is like a giant hair comb, just a single comb with wide width between the tines. And so it works really well for going into a lot of hair. A lot of what you find on the open market for hair or holding hair up, like long hair, is considered just below the shoulders. And they have finer and more densely populated ways of holding it, which doesn't work great when your hair is long. So I just wanted to show that to y'all if you're interested, because it's something I've learned and tried that I really like. And I was putting my hair up before the show because it's been up all day, but it like starts getting loose. And I was like, oh, I better fix my bun. And I really liked, I was like, I should show the ladies who watch me how I keep my hair up comfortably. I can actually sleep with this in and I don't even know it's there. Like that's the part that's great. And it's just a single hair comb made out of metal. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Today, as promised, I'm going to talk to you about the future of living free in Tennessee going into 2024. I decided after sort of the July to October, November busy session that I had, like y'all know, I was racing faster than I could keep up. I was doing my best. And then I had some very deep family issues happen. And I managed to get work done, but it was very hard. And I realized as part of my word of the year breakthrough that I needed to slow down a little bit to do better at fewer things. And so I'm going to talk about what that means for living free in Tennessee as we move into next year. I'm going to talk about the other businesses I work on and the why behind all of these decisions. I am open to requests, conversations, comments in the live feed, or if you're listening to this on the audio podcast, feel free to email me if you have thoughts as a result of this episode. That's Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com, or go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, and those come to me. I'm also going to go over our usual Monday segments because it's a Monday show. Before I do that, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that is the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop. It's almost here. We've got 2 events within 3 weeks of each other that are fun, must-attend events. I've got Self-Reliance Festival, first weekend of April, and I have the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop at the end of April. The Spring Workshop is quite different than the Self-Reliance Festival in that you're going to be with fewer people and you have a better opportunity to get to know fewer people well. We also have a tendency to have some projects that are more intensive while we're here. There's a lot more just what I'm going to call pop-up sessions of people showing you like different things. We've had some really fun pop-up sessions before, and we'll have fun ones at this one as well. We camp on site. We feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We hang out late into the evening around the campfire. Karaoke is sung in a different part of the property. So there's like people who don't want karaoke can have campfire, and people who want karaoke can have a karaoke, and it's not like all in everybody's face, which is nice. And it's just a really good time. For me, it feels like a family reunion, and it's at the Holler Homestead, so it's at my homestead, and we always have a big project and some different really awesome speakers come. So that is happening April 25th through 27th in 2004. Save the dates for that. It's all inclusive. If you don't like camping though, there are some Airbnbs and some cabins nearby that can be rented. A lot of people will go in who don't want to camp or who fly from out of town and didn't want to bring gear. They'll go in on a cabin because you can fit 4 or 5 people in one of those cabins, and then it actually brings the nightly cost down for everybody. So it's a fun event. Highly recommend. I am biased because I created it. I did copy Jack Spirko's approach and I've learned a lot about how he runs his events, because his events are worth going to and they take care of you. We take care of you too. So check it out. Keep in touch about that. I usually pre-sell some tickets at this time of year that are being given away as Christmas presents. So if you want to give your spouse or significant other or another person one of these tickets as a Christmas gift, let me know. I do it'll be beyond the deposit, so you pay the whole ticket price in advance for that. And it's $500 to $550 depending on how the budget works out this year. I haven't I will know that very shortly, but it just like stuff has gone up in price, but I keep trying to keep the cost for the workshop to adult roar, to keep it as reasonable as possible. And as I said, that includes your food, beverages, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, April 25th through 27th, plus great speakers, great fellowship, camping on site, all of those things. I also want to thank our 2 sponsors of today's show. The first one is Discount Mylar Bags. So Toby from Discount Mylar Bags has been supporting my show from before we allowed supporters of the show. Great guy. He's support Hollow Roast Coffee as well in the form of helping us source for less money and higher volume coffee bags. That's what he does. That's why he has Discount Mylar Bags. He's also passionate about preparedness and self-reliance and has done a lot of digging into the best way to preserve foods and to store them. So if you just want to go learn about that, go to discountmylarbags.com. On the right-hand column, he has a bunch of resources about food storage. And of course, he passes on his value that he gives in sourcing things in bulk through lower prices on his products, high quality Mylar bags, discountmylarbags.com. I also want to thank EMP Shield. EMPShield.com has a cool product that not only can protect you against EMP pulse. EMP pulses is like redundant because the P in EMP is pulse. So EM pulses can protect you against those. They also protect you against instabilities in the power grid, which can really affect your devices and your appliances, as well as lightning, like surges from lightning hitting transformers and that sort of thing, which seems like this can't happen. I live in the country. This can happen. Like we just had tornadoes tear through the state 2 nights ago. And that's exactly when that sort of thing might happen. If you have an EMP shield on your home or vehicle or off-grid system and something like that happens, it will fry the EMP shield. You know, it won't fry your refrigerator, your computer, your stove. If you have an electric stove, your HVAC unit, like all of the things that are connected to the grid that can just be shot by that kind of a surge. And if they have an insurance protection for you up to I think it's $25,000, but it might be $20,000 of replacement for things if it fails. They have a wall of fame in their factory of all these just destroyed EMP shield devices that have happened as a result of different things, hitting the power grids. And every one of those represents somebody's stuff did not get messed up because that device was fried. Anyway, you can find out more about those at empshield.com. If you use the coupon code LFTN, that's LFTN for Living Free in Tennessee, you get $50 off. With that, I do want to remind you that if you want to send me feedback or emails, you can do it, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. And as we mentioned earlier, there's a contact form at livingfreeintennessee.com as well. Live stream schedule this week is super aggressive. No, you're going to notice a change in the live stream schedule as we move through the end of the year and into next year. And that's part of what we're talking about on today's show. So we got Tuesday live tomorrow at 12:30 with Porterhouse from Porterhouse and Teal. Can't wait to catch up with him. John Willis and I are looking forward to that conversation. Friday, we have Homestead Happenings at 9:30 a.m. I'll be joined by the Tactical Redneck unless something goes horribly wrong. And we will share with you what's going on around the homestead, most of which probably has to do with construction and less about homesteading this week. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's gotten colder this week. So like all sorts of interesting things are happening. I, of course, had a mouse in my house 3 nights ago. That was exciting. It took both of us to catch it. And that's what happens at this time of year is the things that notice it got cold outside try to come inside, which is not my favorite, but that's what happens. So we'll talk a little bit about that on Friday's show. Sunday, I have a surprise add-on show that's not going to be a podcast, but it will be something you can watch online. I'm doing it with some help from friends, Toolman Tim, I think Brian Alexovich, and I don't know if Carrie Brown or Amy Dingman is joining us. One of those two. I should know, but I didn't write it down right. So I know who we asked. I don't know if they had time, but we're going to do a project accelerator. You may wonder what a project accelerator is. If you've been to my spring workshop, you know what a project accelerator is because people will present ideas that they have or something they want to do on their homestead or a business they want to start or a business they've started that they're not quite sure what to do with next. And then we give them feedback as a group to tap into the expertise that we know we have in anybody who's in our group setting. And we help them accelerate launch or accelerate improvements, and we offer help. So that's going to happen online with a friend of mine, Willow, who, if you were at the October Self-Reliance Festival, she was the person who was happy and smart and gave some really interesting answers when, questions were asked. But she has like her superpower, we call it spreading sunshine. Like she just makes people happy. And she isn't sure how to monetize that, and one needs to monetize something to pay for things in their lives. So we call this this particular project Monetizing Sunshine. That will be Sunday live. I think it's at 7 p.m., but it might be 8 p.m. Central. I am clarifying that with Tim as well. I just, as I said, I didn't track my details on that one as well as I should have. So by the time tomorrow's email goes out, the Monday mail is going out Tuesday this week because I had some stuff happen and it intervened with my ability to give Letty what she needs to get the email put together. So that'll go out. We already announced that'll go out tomorrow. By the time that goes out, we will know the time. I am confident it is 7 or 8. I just don't know which of those two it is right now. And it'll be on this YouTube channel, which is at LFTN on YouTube. So I can't wait to have that happen. Now, some of you may have noticed over the weekend, there were tornadoes that killed, last I heard, they killed 2 families of 3 in Tennessee, which is really sad. They destroyed a lot of property, a lot of homes. And, I've had a few, like we reached out to everybody we could think of in the network. And so far, everybody in our Self-Reliance Festival network, in the LFTN network, in the TSP network, and in the SOE network that we know about, weathered the storm fine. Some people had some damage, some people lost power, but all in all, we're all alive. One person is in the hospital. They had a heart attack, but they're alive. And it was just kind of a scary night. I've gotten a lot of people reaching out saying like, isn't it weird to have tornadoes in December? Well, you may not remember this, but in 2020, shortly before Christmas, I think it might have been Christmas Eve, but it might have been a couple days before Christmas, we had worse outcomes of tornadoes flattening an entire town near community member Kurt Duggar. And they also they wrecked Kentucky. That's actually part of why we know Bear from Bear Independent is that John Willis saw what Bear was doing, went up to see in person if he was really doing what he said on his videos. And they developed a relationship because he was like, John brought like truckloads of rice and other supplies for them to feed people. And that's how he got to know Bear, and that's why we know Bear. Like, that's why Bear talks to us. That's why Bear is gonna be talking to us next week. So, um, I will keep you posted if I find out ways that you can help if you wanna help. So far, there has not been a clear way for us to help beyond what's already been done through other established tornado relief sources, like I can't remember his name. That guy who live streams the weather. You guys, you need to put it in the comments for me because I'm forgetting his name right now. Like, he raised $30,000 or so the night that it happened. That's actually who I was watching for informational updates. And then in our county, we have a guy named Spiky Mikey who's really good at sort of predicting when these things happen. But we had, I mean, the tornado was within a mile of one of our community members, and that's scary. That's scary, and that happens in December. I think the reason that it's not as rare in December as people think it would be, because what happens in Tennessee in December is we're sort of on this cusp between heat pushing up from the south and cold pushing down from the north. And Ryan Hall, that's right. Thank you, Carrie. So Ryan Hall was taking donations, and I'm sure he still is, to actually get money and resources to people on the ground who are affected. Also, I would like to mention Alan Bouchard, who's one of our community members, because Crossville was hit as well. He has heavy equipment, and he had that staged and ready to go help people. So I'm sure he has already been out there helping people clear stuff. And that's why we love this community. So anyway, I don't know what I was saying, but they do. Oh yeah. So in December, I have noticed that we do this thing in the fall where it's warm, it's cold, it's warm, it's cold. And then sometime in December, it like the switch finally goes into winter here. Usually, like, doesn't mean it won't be warm again, but it kind of like there's this dramatic shift where it's like, okay, winter has arrived. Like, it is below freezing every night now. And that switch happened the night that the tornadoes came through. And that night, I believe that was Saturday. My days are flowing together, but I'm pretty sure that was Saturday because that was my first day back in my bedroom in my house, and I was able to orchestrate my flooring project so that I could, it might have been Friday night. I was able to orchestrate my flooring project so that I think it was Friday night, so that I could sleep in the house and not be in a camper when tornado risk was out there, because my alternative was gonna be put a blow up mattress in Tactical's living room and figure out how to have dogs down there that we don't really want with each other. So, I was able to be in the house, and that was kinda nice, and we were able to drag the TV in from outside and watch Ryan Hall and sort of see what was happening. He kinda stopped reporting by the time it got out here because the strength of the storm reduced, although we did have some tornadoes out our way as well, just nowhere near as bad as what hit Nashville and Clarksville. So, if I hear anything, guys, I'll keep you posted. I do like to, like, when these things happen, I like to try to connect our community and link people to help. And it's not just tornadoes that happen in Tennessee. We've done this for wildfires in California and a couple other things. It just depends on if there's somebody in an area in our community who's like, okay, we know we can help. Talk about it. And I'm saying that now so that if you are that person in the future, you can reach out, because I am happy to talk about things on the show, help people, like help raise money, help get people on the ground when we can. Our next segment is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store, which is something I learned how to do after moving to the country. Like, I was not always like the best at pantry management. I had during the Y2K stuff, I went into Y2K prepared in the following way. If things melted down, I had a canoe, and I planned to canoe down the Willamette River to my then husband's parents' house. That was not very realistic, but that was the plan. And then I also had 2 or 3 cases of food. I had green beans, and I had corn, and I had tomato sauce. So those were my preps for Y2K. And when Y2K happened and nothing happened, I didn't even realize how silly my preps were. But you know what? My heart was in the right place. And I'm telling you this story because you have friends who prep like I prepped for Y2K. And the worst thing you can do is make fun of them. Better is to say, just ask a question, are you like, what do you like to eat? Have you ever thought about what your family actually eats? Like, it's great that you have, stores of wheat or whatever, but do they eat wheat? And if they do, great. How much wheat? How many years of wheat have you stored up? And would you like to store up maybe something else that goes with that, right? So you can start asking questions. You got to be careful about sounding critical. And I think when a crisis happens like the tornadoes in Tennessee and people find themselves without or their generators didn't start, we had a couple of people with that problem, etc. It's a good time to say, "Awesome. So can I help you set up a maintenance schedule for your generator? Because I know how to do that and I can show you how to do that. Do you have enough water? Like what would happen if the water stopped as a result of a tornado hitting the water line a mile away from your home? Do you have water stored? Because that's super helpful. Like I know this month I've been living in the camper and I didn't have my Berkey in the camper and I didn't have access to my sink because my floor was like drying. And so in order to get water, I had to walk all the way down the hill to Tacticals, or Tactical had to walk all the way up. Luckily, we have water stored in half-gallon containers, so every time we walked up, I was like, "I need another half gallon. I need another half gallon." Or not, I mean, what, so it wasn't every single time, but it was a much easier rotation than if we had to go down and fill containers and bring containers up, and just having that one piece was super helpful. Why am I going into all this detail over the pantry? Well, because I'm really good at pantry management now, but I was not always really good at pantry management. And the best way to get good at it is to start. And the best way to start is to take a week and every time, just have a pad of paper in your kitchen. Every time somebody like eats something or uses something, they write down. And at that end of that week, write, like, just look at what you really eat and don't judge yourself. Just look at what you really eat. If you ate, you know, 6 loaves of bread as a family, then you ate 6 loaves of bread. Don't judge. Just know that, because the best thing that can happen when you're dependent on your pantry and cannot refill it is that it has things that you actually like. It has things that you consider comfort food. So you're not like also changing your diet and how you cook if you have a situation where it's hard to get to the grocery store or the grocery store's shelves are empty because a tornado came through and the trucks can't get in for resupply, right? That being said, I've gone to a different level on pantry management also as a result of being a homesteader, because we grow most of our food and we source other food locally. So I've got 2.5 cows in the freezer now. That's right. We fit, woo, woo, 2.5 cows in my deep freezers. Most of that success in fitting the meat in has everything to do with me playing some Tetris when I was younger. So we call it meat Tetris or freezer Tetris. We played freezer Tetris this week. And originally, Tactical was going to go pick up both cows. We already had a half cow in and bring it back in one go. And I'm really glad he didn't, because when that first cow came, like my instructions for butchering my cow had a lot to do with keep as much of the cow as possible. So my cow takes up more room than the one I split with somebody else, because her instructions are not, I mean, she also keeps as much cow as possible, but she cuts things into smaller pieces. And then I think there's a little bit more waste in that because our cows weighed about the same, but the way she had it butchered, it was smaller. And, yeah, that was interesting. So when I put my cow in my commercial ice cream freezer, it was 3/4 full, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad I don't have 2 cows right now because 'cause I'm tired." I had spent 7 hours installing floor on my hands and knees. My back hurt really bad, and I was like, "I'm so glad I don't right now at 6 o'clock at night in the dark need to figure out where to fit the second cow." So then the next day, I went and got the second cow. And before I got the second cow, I assessed what I could do. I contacted my friend. I'm like, "You didn't finish your half of last year's cow. Can I bring that to you tonight?" That made space. And then she's making the bone broth from our cow, which I usually do every year, but I have a cow and a half's worth to make bone broth from. So I'm also making bone broth. So none of the bones are in the freezer right now. They are either at her house or at my house being cooked into delicious beef bone broth, which is I get a lot of tallow off of this too, which is great because tallow is one of my favorite fats to cook with. I did also pull a pile of meat out when the cow arrived for us to eat this week so that we stay on our eating plan and amid the ongoing construction chaos, which keeps getting longer and longer for different reasons, but we'll go into that. We'll go into that at different time. But yeah. The other thing about the freezers, by the way, is those Yolink sensors. I keep hearing from y'all on social, on the Telegram group and in MeWe and on Facebook about how much you love those Yolink sensors for keeping track of what's up with your freezer. And right now, with 2.5 cows in my freezers, is an extra nerve-wracking time for me because that ice cream freezer works, but the only way I'll know it doesn't work without a sensor is coming out to a pile of sad, and it's like most of those cows are in that one freezer. So I'm moving sensors around. I need to order another 2, and I can tell you that like 40 or $50 or whatever they cost, well worth not losing a bunch of meat if the freezer fails. I think we are gonna get another freezer here because I actually kinda like to have one in backup, and I know that sounds like crazy, but to have one in backup that I can use for butchering classes, so it's off most of the time, and then if one of my freezers I use all the time fails, I instantly have a place I can move, and I can get another one for processing classes. So that's how I work with that. You don't necessarily have to do that if you don't do butchering classes, but for me, it works great. And eventually, we're going to build a walk-in here. That is the plan. Also, this week's crock pot meal is a beef roast from last year's cow because I also haven't finished all of last year's cow, which doesn't bode well for eating 2.5 cows this year. Actually, it's only 2 cows, but there are some roasts left that I pulled out, and I had Tactical put it in a crock pot in the cabin because, as I said, my place is all ripped up and not usable. And cut up an onion, add some garlic and cumin, a jar of home canned tomato sauce, and salt and pepper. And to make this successful with carrots, you add carrots about 4 hours before it's done. But I usually cook 8 to 12 hours on a sort of a pot roast like this, like a slow cooked pot roast. It's a chuck roast, and it's a great way to cook it when you don't have a lot of time, don't have a lot of space, and don't want to make a huge mess. So I am going to do what I call the "Oh no, I failed" crazy bailout cooking tonight, which is going to happen because I did not add the carrots 4 hours before. So the carrots are going to be pre-steamed on Tactical's stove and then added to the roast. And we'll probably just have that and maybe a side salad if my lettuce is still okay. I did not go grocery shopping this weekend. I'm really trying, like, I can't have a lot of stuff around right now, and we keep moving fridges, and empty fridges are easier to move than full fridges. I'm unplugging them at night because it's going below freezing and I don't want them to break. Like, there's just a whole lot of logistics. So, hopefully when everything's back in my kitchen, I will be unplugging my outdoor fridge for winter. And the only reason it would go back in to be plugged in will be if a deer carcass needs to be aged. So that's all the news from the Prepper Pantry. Next up is our weekly shopping report from Joe. And Joe says this is from the 11th of December, which is today. And he posted this. So if I would have transmitted at 2 p.m. when I usually do on Monday, this still would have come in time for me to do it. But last week I didn't get one because his schedule and my schedule just didn't match up. So this is what he says. We took our usual trip on Saturday and we stayed dry. Traffic was light. Dollar Tree was first, and the coolers and food and drink are all in decent shape, as though an effort has been made to do this. The store has become a lot busier over the last few weeks, and 3 cashiers were open. Amidst all the junk, there were some good finds. Feel free to listen to Jenny on her Homestead Corner YouTube channel. She often does a budget Dollar Tree prepper hauls. Interesting. Home Depot was second. FYI, they will shake your own paint cans for you. I don't think there's a charge. That's true. They will do that. The tag was missing in the store, but looking online, a 2x4x8 has gone up 7 cents to $3.25 for a 2x4x8. Aldi was last, and we found everything we wanted, but the chocolate was dwindling again. We got the last small pieces of Atlantic salmon, and the cashier said they were expecting a truck. There was some price adjustments. Staple prices are as follows: milk $3.02 a gallon, eggs $1.66 the dozen, heavy cream $4.68 for a pint, quart for a quart, OJ $3.29, butter $2.99 for a pound, that's gone down, bacon $4.25, potatoes $3.99, that's gone up, sugar $3.09, flour $1.99, and 80% ground beef is $4.19. A gallon of untainted regular is $3.66. I made a quick trip to Walgreens on Sunday to restock vitamin C. They typically have a buy one, get one deal on vitamins and supplements, or buy one at full price and the second is half price. C was BOGO. So we now have a couple years worth for around $21. So that was your frugality tip for the week as well. Thanks for that, Joe. Because I didn't have a frugality tip. So Joe provided it. BOGO at Walgreens. And it's probably good through Thursday because usually like stores change on Thursday. So it's Monday. You've still got time. You can actually just call them and see if it's still on if you want to. Anyway, thank you, Joe, for that shopping report. Our next segment is Operation Independence. This is where I talk about building local ongoing revenue into your life, as well as avoiding the need to pay a guy so that you like don't have to earn as much money and pay taxes on it to pay a guy. And this is part of how I have taken ownership for my financial future is through that focus on Operation Independence. And this week, I've really been thinking about the poverty mindset and busting through your poverty mindset. We talked about it a little bit last week. I have amazing construction project fatigue at this point. It was fine. I was set up in my glamper. I was doing great. And then from one day to the next, I went from okay to not okay at all. We talked about that last week. And with the project fatigue, it's easy for negative decisions to be made kind of based on the short-term outcome of wanting this pain to go away for me. I really want the pain to go away of living like this. Um, and it has all centered around the color of my floor. I bought Sacrete Microcrete with dye for a specific color, and it is a dark chocolate brown color, and it is showing up as a light brown pink, like ice cream weird color. It's sort of a beigey pink. I'm looking at it now. Almost looks like leaning towards gray. Now, I used white Sacrete and the dye. I used it the way they told me to. I used it in the proportions they told me to. And the issue is, so if I get it really wet, it gets that color. It shows that color. So I thought, oh, when I seal it, it'll end up the chocolate brown. Luckily, I tested that somewhere where it will not show on the floor and the sealant doesn't soak in enough to bring it to make it darker. And I could not figure out what was going on, guys. So I talked to my friend who's used this product before, and he basically said that, oh, a light went off. He basically said that because I burnished it, it sort of polished the concrete and it's not as porous anyway. Like that's the purpose of this. It's not just concrete. It has polymers mixed in so it doesn't crack as easily as concrete does. And that burnishing has almost like sealed it so that it's not absorbing the the final coat of sealant in. It's like the sealant dries and it's fine and it adheres. It's just not going all the way in like you would think on porous concrete. And that's even after sanding. Well, when I sanded, that was the effect of burnishing the floor. And so I was going to just seal it anyway and live with the color. I did a video about that on TikTok. And then I talked to him some more and he's like, Nicole, you have come so far. You have put so much work into this floor, and I have put weeks of work into this floor at this point, like way more than I thought I was going to. Do I regret the floor decision? No, I don't, because like it's like a giant, easy to clean tile. Like I love that part about it. And it looks good right now. It would look better chocolate brown. And he said, you can still stain it if you don't like the color. Once you seal it, you cannot stain it and there's no going back. The only other thing you can do at that point is coat over the top of it another time, which is like even more disruptive. And I was going to start sealing it last night because I had to seal it and I'm just over it. And then Tactical and I kinda decided we'd wait till today. I'd start early in the morning so it was dry by night so I could walk on it and get in and out of my house and into my bedroom and whatever, and if that wasn't dry enough, I'd climb through a window. And I'm glad that my friend called me and was like, "You've put so much time, don't give up now. Get the floor you want. What you need to do is go get or concrete stain and test it." So, because I have an area where cupboards are gonna go in or cabinets are gonna be built, so you'll never see it, but I concreted all the way to the wall, so it was all one level, and that actually gives me a really great place where I can just test all sorts of stuff, and it doesn't show on the floor. So, I didn't like that answer because I want my floor done because I'm having this, like, project fatigue, and I'm seeing the short-term cure of my pain as feeling very emotionally important, and finally, I was like, "Okay, what do you do in a situation where basically, like, construction poverty mindset has just come in and my short-term goal feels more important than the long-term goal?" And what you do is you call a friend and you say, "I gotta get past this mindset and make the best decision for the project rather than the most comfortable decision for me right now." And I talked it through with a friend, and he advised that I just get the floor I want. And so what I decided to do was drive all the way to Home Depot in my neighbor's car because my car was not home, go get samples of stains and, another product for sealing that's different than the one I bought at Lowe's. Home Depot has better selection for concrete floors, for the record. And that took 45 minutes there, it took 45 minutes at the store, and it took 45 minutes to come back of, like, not even making progress on my life, on my business, or on my floor. And then before I did the show notes, and this is why the show's late today, I drove out, I got it done, I did the tests so they would be dry so I could see what they really look like, and I got people's opinions on it, and then I decided what I really wanted, which is completely different than my friend's opinion on the color of my floor, by the way. But he got his opinion in. And I need to wait for concrete to arrive because if I'm gonna stain my floor, it goes all the way into my laundry room. And if I wasn't staining the floor, I could stop at the doorway to the laundry room. The dyed concrete would match no matter what, and then I could just seal it and it would be fine. Now I have to have the rest of that concrete in, the dyed concrete. It has to have cured at least 24 hours, and then I can stain the whole thing so it's all one color and I don't have a weird, like, color difference at the doorway. So that's what I decided to do. And that is now delaying. I thought I'd be having, being able to move in my stuff already by Wednesday or Thursday. The way this is going now, because my concrete did not get delivered um today. It'll be delivered tomorrow, assuming tracking is correct. So when I'm done with my live stream, if it's here, I will coat that floor so it can start drying. I will run the dehumidifier. I will pump the wood stove up so that it cures really well in that 24 hours because it will cure in 24 hours. But if you've got like wood stove, dehumidifier, fan on it, it looks cured within about 12 hours. But if you go the full 24, it's actually like very, very solid. And then I need to sand it. In order to do that, I will rent a floor sander again. And the sanding will take, gosh, probably less than 15 minutes. Like, I think if I can arrange for somebody to help me by driving it back to Lowe's, I can just do a 4-hour rental instead of a 24-hour rental, and that will be done. And then I need to clean it very well, and I can start staining. Well, at that point, it will be Wednesday afternoon when I can start staining. And I've mentioned already that it's cold at night here, and I have a nice wood stove in here, and I probably won't start sealing. I might change my mind because I did a test with the stain and it dries within 2 hours. So I might get the staining done Wednesday, but the sealing, they recommend 24 full hours before you walk on it. Now, based on what I just did with sealing, it's very solid after 2 hours here in this environment with my wood stove going, but I can't add wood to the stove once the floor is sealed. I can add it over there in the corner as long as I can walk on the rest of the floor, but I can't just like seal the whole thing. So I will have heaters going. I will have the dehumidifier going until it runs out. I will have a window open, like able to open so I can climb in and out and like empty the dehumidifier and all of that. And there will be a cracking, like awesome fire in my wood stove. But I may not start the ceiling until Thursday morning, which means I'm probably not moving appliances and the heavy stuff back in until Friday afternoon. So it just gets that extra time to really solidify. And I may be spending Thursday night in the camper again. I'm not sure. Hopefully, there's not weather. Um, as I said, the backup is I climb through a window, which is super exciting stuff. It's like reminds me of when I was a kid and locked myself out and had to climb in through windows and whatnot. That's the best way to break into your house, by the way, is find a window you didn't lock. As an aside, and so I am going to get the floor I like, but chaos will not be abated until Friday night, and then some people are stopping by Saturday. So none of whom care about what my house looks like, but I don't think the house will be all the way back together by then, but I will at least have a fridge inside and a stove inside and my countertops back inside, and I will have deep dusted from the top down and put my couch in and have chairs and hopefully have my TV hung on the wall where there is now a plug where it plugs straight in and the cord doesn't like hang down the wall. That's a super huge innovation. And if that's not done, we're totally doing that together. The people who come visit me, we're gonna hang this TV so we can play Christmas music. Um, anyway, for me, that's under Operation Independence because I had to address the poverty mindset, and because I've really spent years addressing poverty mindset in other decisions. Sometimes I feel a little separate from like, what does it take to get started with that? And in this case, it took calling a friend and saying, I can tell that I'm more worried about the short term pain than the long term success. So help me talk this through. Help me evaluate if the short term pain actually matters enough to the long term success that I just do this thing and I just like, I just deal because I didn't hate the color. And they helped me see the long-term benefit of getting it done. They also it was tactical, by the way. He also pre-sanded that floor for me in the mudroom today while I was getting the show ready so that I can just spread like I'm gonna deep clean tonight so that there's no like the worst thing about spreading microcrete is if you have bits and bobs, like you need to make sure it's very clean and then you don't have problems. I'm going to deep clean that tonight so that tomorrow when the microcrete comes, I can deep clean it again faster and then do it. Because no matter what, no matter how many times you vacuum or clean a space before doing microcrete, if you go away for like an hour or two, like magically more grits show up. So just realize no matter what you do, you're vacuuming before you spread the stuff. I actually, when I was doing the great room, I was vacuuming sections before I went on to the next section. I realized what was happening is that the concrete, like you get it on your pants, you're clean because oh my laundry's next door. You get it on your like paint pants, and then like one will fall off, and so that worked really well as a strategy, just to have like to back out with the vacuum cleaner as I went. Okay. We are 45 minutes in and we've just finished our segments, and I am just now starting to talk to you about the thing you actually came here for, which is learning about the future of living free in Tennessee for 2024. And I want to start out by saying something very important. I'm not pregnant. It seems like every time I talk about changes coming, people are like, "Are you pregnant?" I'm not pregnant. I don't think I would be chosen for the Messiah, and we'll just leave it at that. So, do you guys remember the epiphany when I did the show on update for the word of the year breakthrough? It was a couple weeks ago. Do you remember what it was? If you do, like throw it in the comments because this is related to that. I've had a lot of planning conversations with y'all about the homestead, like Tactical and I talked to you about that. And I had that conversation going on. I've had the last week we talked about how important it is for your home. But like the core point or the biggest lesson learned from breakthrough has been do less, right? Remember that? And as I got into do less, I realized that, I got through the busy time and I realized that do less means do more. It doesn't mean that I work less hard, but it means that I do fewer things and do more of the fewer things that are most beneficial to the future. And with that in mind, I was like, okay, healthier Nicole. We need a healthier Nicole in 2024 because what happened between July and October was not healthy for me. And it showed. Like some of you are like, Nicole, are you all right? And I'm like, I'm not all right. But there is nothing I can do because I've committed to things and I need to live up to what I've committed to. And it's just like one step at a time till I get all this stuff done. Right. And that means a healthier Nicole. That means time for fitness. That means family. That means food. That means time to reset and a functioning home, which we're very close to having that now. And having tapped into data from the podcast, like I can see on YouTube when we have like what parts of what shows have more views. I can see which shows you guys are more interested in. I can see where comments come in. And the same is for the audio podcast. Now, my audio podcast has many, many times more downloads than I have views on YouTube. So people prefer to consume my content in audio, and I think that's because long form content like this is way more consumable. Like it's the kind of thing you pop in your ears while you're working on your garden or doing some canning or spreading your floor. I listened to like 9 podcasts this last week while I was putting floor in, right? Because you're doing something with your hands, so it's great to listen. And some of you listen to this on YouTube, but this isn't the most visually stimulating thing, like this is way better audio on YouTube even than it is video. So I looked at interactions that you've had with each other on social media to see what really gets you hopping and looked at what you've sent me via email and all of those things, and I realized something about 2024. We need to change what we're doing. Like the shotgun approach, which is kind of complementary to my ADHD world. The shotgun approach isn't serving you well, and it isn't serving me well. And so with the idea of do less in mind, I already started doing less. And one of the things I've already started doing, we'll talk about first. So these are changes that I see. I have this divided up into categories: the podcast, the homestead, a new project collaboration, the events like SRF and LFTN spring workshop, the book, the coffee, the membership program, and the rentals. And I know now that I've read you the list, does that seem like I'm doing less? No, it doesn't. But bear with me here. Bear with me here. We'll hit that as we go. First and foremost, for me personally, the thing I do that I love the most is this podcast and the community that it has spurred. Like that's one of the things that's the reason I get up every day. I love to teach and I love to make connections and I love to show what we learn as a result of those connections. And it's all built into the podcast, right? I love to tell stories and there's so many stories to tell. What I noticed is that those of you who've come to Living Free in Tennessee mostly come for these topics: building freedom as an agorist or building freedom in your life, choosing freedom, homestead life and how to, community and connection, like real community and creating success. Like those things are the things you're most interested in. And so I'm going to keep that in mind as we're coming up with show topics. I might go into some current events again. I used to do that and I sort of stepped back from public policy on the podcast because I felt that too much analysis into a broken system does not help us. It just causes fear, and we don't need to make our decisions from a place of fear. So that's going to change. I also noticed that I love doing these Tuesday lives with John Willis, and they've become their own thing. And in some ways, I just read you all my focuses. In some ways, they are separate or not in concert with what we usually talk about on the podcast. And so what I think makes sense is to play some of those on the podcast when it makes sense, but to make that its own standalone podcast. So people who just really want to hear those group discussions, because they're different, right? Those group discussions can just listen to them, and I'll probably repackage and repurpose with the help of outsourcing former Tuesday Lives into its own podcast that rolls out on its own schedule. And then sometimes we'll run some here, sometimes we won't. So Beth Emily says, I'm so grateful for finding your podcast that led me to John and Jack and many more. Awesome. Um, I have a really interesting list of people we'll be having on the Tuesday Lives going forward. And like this whole month is scheduled out. I don't even know, like, like we're working on just increasing the variety there, but then also including some of the regulars like Toolman Tim and Porterhouse and Bear and all the people you've learned to love to listen to. Jack's always that first Tuesday, right? Unless we're the second Tuesday. He'll be the first Tuesday in January, though. So those are going to kind of become a standalone thing. And I did that because I was worried that I was diluting that brand and it was diluting my brand. And it made more sense to just sort of clarify what that thing is. And a lot of that leads like that's a way for us to cross-pollinate community and to get to know new people and to feed into the Self-Reliance Festival. That's being said, Living Free in Tennessee will be 3 shows a week, Monday at 2 p.m., the Monday Live, unless I have a day like today, then it'll be Monday at 4 p.m. But you know what I mean? Like most of the time, Monday, 2 p.m., I want to be on that schedule. Wednesday, 2 p.m. interview. That's where you fill out the guest form. I have gone back through all the guest forms that I have received and sent emails saying, schedule your show. And if I haven't heard from you, I am deleting your form. I have a couple of you who are having your forms deleted if by the end of the week I don't hear something. And there are some of you who we are going back and forth on schedule. That's cool. We're not deleting your form. We're working on finding your day. So that's going to happen. And then Friday at 9:30, we're going to do homestead happenings. Last year, when we had the time like daylight savings time change, I moved it to an hour later because farm chores don't care what time we call it when we change the time. I think I'm going to try keeping it at 9:30 through that change. If it doesn't work with the homestead chores, though, it will go to 10:30 for daylight savings time. That being said, you guys love that Tactical has started joining me on the Homestead Happenings show. So he will join me weekly. And sometimes when I'm on the road, guess what? He'll do it solo. Like he'll hijack Homestead Happenings. Sometimes when he's on the road, I will do it alone. But in general, do that like collaborative Homestead Happenings. And like we've had like the set template of things that I cover. And I think we're going to mix that up a little bit. We're going to mix that up a little bit in 2024, just based on the interactions that Tactical and I have on the homestead. The weekly mail will happen as it has. We've made big changes to the weekly mail that goes out to the Living Free in Tennessee network. Of course, if you want to sign up, go to livingfreeintennessee.com and sign up. That'll get you on the weekly mail. It goes out Monday. And we highlight the recipe of the week. We talk about our live stream schedule. Beth Emily says, that's true. We love Tactical. Awesome. I have a marketing clerical help person, Letty, who's helping me put that together. I have to get her the information for that to happen. And then she gleans information from other sources. But we ended up codifying a community calendar in there and kind of talking about what's going on in our social networks, as well as saying, this is the live stream schedule. This is the podcast that you missed from last week, like all of that. And then we thank our sponsors, and we have a homesteading tip of the week, as well as a recipe of the week. And that's all based on a survey I sent to those of you who were already signed up for the email. I'll probably do a follow-up survey about halfway through the year and see if it's still serving what we like. But the point with that is you can get all your information in one place once a week, and you don't have to have like constant notifications. If you want constant notifications, though, we have a Telegram channel. It's not a group, it's a channel, Living Free in Tennessee on Telegram. And you can, I think it's LFTN channel, at LFTN channel. You'll like every time I put something out, it goes there, and I will be more disciplined about that in 2024. I haven't been doing here's the live stream, here's the podcast every day, because it's like the same show. But I decided that some of you wanna know when the podcasts come out, and some of you wanna know when the live stream's happening, so those will happen. I am hoping to automate that posting a little bit better, and I hopefully Tom has time to work with me on that. Like, he and I started working on it, and then I became insane and didn't answer him. So, it's on me. But if that, to the extent that can be automated, would be awesome, and then it might actually help feed into the weekly mail. Um, did you hear what I just said there? There's, like, all of these automations I'm looking at to make things easier, and that's part of do less. That's actually, so it sounds like I'm doing more, but I'm actually looking at ways to outsource and automate some things so that it is actually less and we're doing more of less. We're gonna go back to our playful roots. Like, I stopped being kind of playful as I went through the last six months, and this morning I started with a post on Facebook about my wood stove, and I've had 43 comments on that so far before the show, and you guys loved it. So let's do more of that. Let's have some fun. And I call it a return to playfulness, but we are also going to be playing with some new shorts series. So the Hey Baby short series is like, it's bothered some of you, but most of you have loved it because what I'm making fun of is that everything is sexy, right? And what society considers sexy is, like certain dress styles, makeup practices, like blah, 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 blah. And what's really funny to me is once you get into building the life you want, like the things that you find attractive in somebody or in a partner aren't necessarily the physical whatever norms. And it's certainly not a shallow person. Like, you start finding new things sexy, like, hey, baby, want to build a rain barrel? That's why I do that series. I think it's hilarious. A lot of you love it. We actually celebrated our first quarter on Friday, and I put out like a, a, a montage of like all of them that we've done so far. But I have some other series I want to work on, and one of them's the Homestead Drug Deal series. Like, we're just gonna have some fun with shorts, because why not? Why not? And then I'm gonna add some clarity to affiliate promotions because I have affiliate links, but you can't find them because I haven't made because I hate money, basically. So we're gonna fix that. So that's what's up for the podcast. For the homestead, I am refocusing on the things we love most. And so something like, I'm not going to raise cows. That's why I buy cows. Like, don't want to raise cows. Tactical thinks he might want to raise cows. We'll talk about that when he's ready to raise cows. We're still working on sheep right now. So just thinking about the things we love most. An example of that is I don't cut and split my own firewood, and Tactical does not do it for me. I pay a guy money to cut, cure, and split firewood for me and deliver it and stack it. Now we help him stack it, but I get, I think it's 6 ricks a year. I don't quite use that much, but he stacks it for me. And that's something I know how to do. I can do. It's not terrible, but it takes a lot of time. And I would rather focus on improving my soil and growing my plants and preserving food. And so we're just really looking at what the homestead does and where we want to put our time, because it's up to us to build the homestead we want, to have it support us in a way that makes sense. And if outsourcing wood is what we do, then great. If there comes a time where I can't afford that, then I will split my own wood again. And that's, there's a log splitter here that makes it easier, actually, as a matter of fact. We'll be talking about how we're going to build the event center. I don't think it will be built this year, but you'll hear more about that. And Tactical lives where that's going to be right now. So before that can be done, he has to build his cabin. So there's lots of like, I finished this floor and I said, is that the kind of floor you want in yours? Because now I know how to do it. Like, now that I've done one, I know how to do it. And he was like, he talked, he was like, maybe here, maybe in that room. And I was like, well, like, you've worked so hard on my project. I feel like I owe you a floor if you're going to want this stuff. Cause now I understand how this stuff works and how to spread it. He's the master at mixing it all the way, though. He's like really good at mixing microcrete. So between us, we can get a floor done. And we're going to try to acquire more land, hopefully connected to this homestead. So expanding out, like, the budget is there to do that if somebody wants to sell us some. But the problem is we have to get somebody to sell us some. And there's one person behind me who I wrote a letter probably a decade and a half ago, and they never answered. So we're gonna start there because I know where the people on either side of me stand as far as sales, and they're not into it right now. And I'm like, you don't harass people about that. Like they know I want to buy it if they ever want to sell it. So just looking at ways. And if that doesn't work, I may look at other properties nearby, but we'll see. There's the one behind us, there's one across the street, and it would be nice to have control of more property so that some of these structures I talk about building, like his cabin, for example, could feasibly be a little further away. Or the glamping site for my camper, which needs a pole barn. I would like to be able to pull the camper under a pole barn like structure, a cover, so that when it rains, it doesn't leak. And that is to say that every camper eventually leaks, and you forestall that happening by not, like, just beating on it with the sun and with the rain. And you have to reseal the roof on the regular, and that's all cool, but it's really nice to put a camper under a cover so that it's less beat on by the elements. And, since most of the time it'll be parked here as a glamping site, I'd like to have sort of that built into the whole system. So that is what is up with the homestead. And we will share how the homestead's developing, just as we go, because a homestead never stops developing. We talked about that on Friday. The community. I will still do everything I can to help facilitate our community being as strong as we've been. I will continue to be ruthless with vampires in this community. I will continue to try to connect people with people who are looking for things that they can help each other with, and to grow our community through this podcast and through the events that we do. The community is the most important part. It's actually the linchpin around which everything functions, right? So that will happen. In order to do that, I need to be a healthy Nicole, right? Just do less, we say. There is a new project that I have decided to work on, and I really thought hard about this for about 5 weeks, I think 4 or 5 weeks before, like, I got a message saying, "Do you wanna do this thing?" And I looked at that, and I was in the middle of Jack Spirko's event, and I was like, "I really can't answer that right now, and if I say something right now, it'll be short, fast, I will forget to get back to it, and then it'll be like me not living up to an agreement, and I'm not gonna do that." So I just didn't answer it. And then the same person's like, "Oh, I just realized you're at Jack's, like, sorry." And I was like, "No, don't be sorry." But it took me another 3 or 4 weeks to say, "Hey, could we have a call about that?" And so we had a call, and I had time to think about it, which, if I had talked about it right after Jack's, and it was Don Gorham who reached out and wanted to collaborate on a cookbook project. And I'm like, "I like this idea. Tell me more. Like, what's your motivation for it?" And she said, "Well, a lot of people don't really know how to cook from nose to tail. And you and I do." And she's like, "And there's things you and I don't know that would be fun to learn. And so we could like put together this cookbook and get it done." And I said, "I have an idea." Because I know how I work without built-in sub deadlines. Is I will procrastinate till the absolute last minute and then, like, panic. So and I won't live up to being a good partner if I approach a project that way. I said, "So here's my thought, is that we start a weekly video show where we cook something, and we just run it on, like, all the video channels. We include, like, a written post about it and the recipe, and at the end of a year, we will have, 52 weeks, 52 recipes that can then be turned into a cookbook." And the hardest part of a cookbook, besides the fact you need to make sure you've tested your recipes and don't just randomly make stuff up, which a lot of people who write cookbooks do that, is getting it formatted, because formatting recipes is not an easy formatting. Like a novel, you just kind of throw the text in and you have to do some headings and maybe you put picture here and there. But with a cookbook, you've got like ingredients, this amount tab, that a thing tab, like whatever, and it can all get weird. And then if you go into the ebook, it can get weird. Well, luckily, we've done a recipe book, Cook with What You Have, so we have an idea of what the formatting takes. It's a lot of work. So when I say it will just be a cookbook after that, I see that almost as a membership offering, or maybe we do produce a book for sale and it's on Amazon or whatever. But I think coordinating that through homegrown cooking will benefit everybody and allow us to have sort of a thematically focused thing. And as we got to talking about it, like we might be able to do some add-ons to it that like help grow her farm. And she's becoming it's really fun to watch this. She's becoming like an event center and a personality, and people are starting to follow her. And, I think it's really cool. So I think it'll be fun. I've gotten to know Dawn over the last, year and a half. And um, we think I said, like, we can do this virtually once a week. I said, I think we need to have a month's worth of content before we launch. And she's like, well, maybe once a month I could come there or you could come here and we could just do a list of things. And I'm like, that's not a bad idea. So I'm not sure how we're executing it. I just know that our next step is to come up with our initial list of what we want to cook and show people how to cook. And then do some recording and see how it turns out. And then if it's like coming together, that'll launch. And if for some reason it doesn't come together, that won't launch. So that one is I think it's happening. I'm committed to making it happen. But if things don't work right, then, we'll do it differently. Which brings us to events. Self-Reliance Festival and the LFTN Spring Workshop. I am tapped out on events, and I may want an event planner to take over some of this stuff. And this is where the do less mantra comes, where I've put things that I'm committed to supporting. I love making them happen. The thing I love most about SRF is doing it there. And it's helping to find the right speakers and the right combinations and connecting the people. And that is what I'm best at. And I'm good at the event coordination, and I have a great team that helps me out. And I am still the CEO of that event right now, basically. And I would love to see a COO basically take over. And that's, probably somebody who helps me on that event already can manage that. I don't know. Like they're hearing this going, Nicole, I can already do that. You just didn't let me. And that's fair. My last time I got very involved in details at the last one. But taking that piece off would allow me to focus more on vision on that side and free up more time for the healthy Nicole effort this coming year. And I think that it can also make the event go further. I'm also going to take fewer speaking engagements than I did in 2023. I try to serve our community by getting out at events when invited to speak. And the reality is there is a huge time investment in creating that content, and there's a huge time investment in getting to these events and getting back from these events, and the in between times, like the transition times. It's a big tax on tactical to run the homestead when I'm not here. And that all means that my opportunity cost for speaking and engagements is higher. So interesting. Oh, Crunchy Mama says, Mother Earth News has canceled all of their fair events. That's a big void that will need to be filled. SRF has got it. And the Living Free in Tennessee workshop. Yeah. It's interesting. In the space of self-reliance and homesteading, there have been a lot of new events, and that's probably why Mother Earth News is doing that, because they're probably finding it harder to sell tickets. I found it harder to sell tickets this year, although we sold more tickets than we ever have. But we definitely worked at it. And I think we pulled off stellar events in 2023. They were great. They like lived up to the hype, and I'm super happy about Homesteaders of America has done nothing but grow. So that might be a little too much competition. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. I didn't realize that. So thank you, Crunchy Mama Farms, for letting me know about that. So that's events. I'm not planning to add a bunch of events. I've had some people talk about franchising SRF. I have one person I trust to do it who's reached out, who probably will do it, and I'm going to help him. But on the coordination side, not. And if that is one of the events I speak at, that's one fewer event I speak at elsewhere. And, like digitally speaking is a lot less opportunity cost, by the way, than traveling, speaking, and traveling back. And I love traveling to see the people and traveling back, but all of that time traveling is just not doing podcasts, not taking care of myself, not taking care of my homestead. It gives me content to pull from, but it's not really doing that either. So it's important to like balance that out. I've learned a lot from watching Joel Salatin this year as I've gotten to know him about how he manages that. And when he is out on a trip to speak, he is all in. And he has Daniel managing the farm at home when he does that. So I love seeing how he does that. I hope to be half the speaker he is someday. That's all I'm going to say about that. The book. How many of you want to see the My Three Things book actually end up in your hands? Yeah. January, I have another retreat to work on the book. And I've realized that creating retreats to finish the book is important. And here's the thing about the book: finish is an interesting term. It's written, and that is like the starting line of the book, not the finish line of the book. So there's a lot more to do. And Angie's, yes, that's right. So there's a whole system to put together around the My Three Things book, including like ways we can interact, ways to have mastermind groups around that so that people can support each other into implementing that into their life. Because you can read the book, but if you don't do what the book says, then, you know, how good is that for you? I want to do more project accelerators like we're doing Sunday. Sunday's sort of a test case of how do we do this digitally. So we'll see how that goes. And supporting mastermind groups, all related to the book. I'm sure there will be webinars and other things related to that. But I don't see getting through 2024 without the My Three Things book going from where it is now to edited to formatted to published. It's just going to happen. And it will happen if I have to take a 3-day retreat every month to get it done. It's just going to be what it is. Hollow Roast Coffee. The coffee keeps growing, guys. Like, I've got more roasting to do after this podcast, and I probably really won't do it. I'm just going to get up early and roast. But and Tactical says Nicole gone in January is not in the Redneck calendar. I saw a cheap flight and you weren't there, so I just grabbed it because I can change it. So we'll talk, and if that doesn't work for you, I'll change it. It's no big deal. I just want to get the My Three Things book done. So, the coffee. To the moon! That's all I've got to say. To the moon! We're gonna go to the moon! I have found people to outsource to who roast like I do, so I can handle more volume. And the marketing is much more methodical now with Letty's help, and I'm excited about it. And the question that comes up in my do less mind, though, is should I sell Hollow Roast coffee? Now, I don't think I should sell Hollow Roast coffee right now. But yeah, Rachel said I was looking for the email from your time today. Yeah, so the email's going out Tuesday because some things happened, and they are things I actually can't talk about, but they caused that email to be delayed, and they were dramatic. Someday I can talk about them, and then you'll know. But just there was a post on social, but I didn't want to send an email saying the email's late and then send the email. So the email comes out tomorrow, this week. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind. I love running the coffee business. I love roasting coffee. The question is, does do less mean eventually sell hollow roast? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, hollow roast has been an integral part of my life for this whole journey on this podcast. So it would be hard for me to let it go. But I think you need to ask yourself hard questions if you're going to progress. And, it's something that kind of came to mind when I heard that Toolman Tim had sold his snowblowing business. I was like, oh, interesting. The membership program. I'm changing how we do it. We have 12 webinars a year, and it used to be monthly. And this year I crammed a bunch of them into an 8-week period of time. And that was fine. I think I didn't communicate that with the members very well, and some people think they didn't get all of their webinars, and they may not even know how to access their webinars. So I feel like I need to go back and communicate better with my members because you support me. And my plan is to have 12 webinars in 2024 for you and have them on a schedule. It won't be monthly, but I want the schedule for the year worked out. And then if we have an add-on webinar, like whatever, it's It's cool. But, I also am looking for new value adds because I sort of modeled my membership program after Jack Spirko's, and it doesn't make sense to just model it after his because a lot of you listen to him too and are in his membership program, so then I don't want it to be the same. So you'll see surveys and other things about what do you want from this beyond the webinars. If the answer is you want the webinar, you want the university, like the Homestead/LFTN University, that's fine. I have some ideas that I'm going to float by you though this year, and I'm not going to talk about them yet, but we'll be talking about them going into next year. And I mean, I think you'll like some of my ideas. It's related to mastermind. We'll just put it that way. So that's the membership program, and then we're going to end on rentals, rental properties. I have part of how I'm able to pay for my life, in addition to like, so the coffee and the podcast were built after, like, mostly after I left my public policy job, which was running a nonprofit that I founded. So it was like still sort of entrepreneurial, but not. Um, I walked away from that income for a year and still worked it. And then I walked away completely. And during that year, I also had to find other ways to make money. And you guys know, like, I tried running a local newspaper, I sold eggs, I was doing hollow roast coffee, I did the membership program for my podcast. I get paid to speak at events and to do facilitations for people for strategic planning. Like, there was this whole list of stuff. I was selling honey, like, whole list of stuff I did. And over the years, that's refined down, but a big thing that has helped was that my original strategy when I was in my 20s was to acquire some rental properties and make them cash flow positive. And I continue to think that's a great revenue stream. But I have one property that's so far from my house that when there's an emergency, it's not always possible for me to go to it, or when there's something urgent, it's not always possible for me to drive there myself, and I haven't found a property management company that I trust to do it, and I have a number of people, some of whom are probably literally listening to this right now, who have been there to work on it for me. So I luckily, I have people who have done great work for me on that and, like, it's paid. It's not just like, "Hey, volunteer there." Um, but when I think about that property, it has appreciated in, like, value over the last, I think I've had it for 15 or 16 years. So it's worth more than when I bought it 16 years ago. But it doesn't really make me money. By the time I factor in maintenance and improvements and, times when there aren't tenants in there and it's really hard to show it because it's so far away, and then if I can't hire somebody in town to show it, it's not ideal. Like, when I factor all that in and I start looking at it, the question is now sell it? And I think what may happen in the real estate market is that going into 2024, I think at some point we're going to see interest rates go down a bit because it's an election year and the Democrats need things to look like things are growing and prosperous. And they don't feel very prosperous when you can't afford to buy a house because your mortgage rate is at 7%, when we've sort of gotten used to thinking about them at 4%. So there may be some, like, reduction of interest rates. I could be wrong about this, but this is what I think might happen. I'm not gonna say it's going to happen. I just looks like it, like, if I was them and in charge, like, I'd want to get reelected and, that's happy economic people help you get reelected. That's just the way it is, and that's one way they can do it. And we hear a lot of people complaining about housing right now. So, um, like, the interest rate going up has caused the real estate markets here, even though we have an influx of people, to drop a little bit, which is interesting. None of that is dropped below the 2007 rate when I bought the place, though, or 6, or when I guess I 6 or 7, I think I got it. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. And so I might sell that one. And if I go into that, I have to decide what to do with money that comes out of it. Um, And what I was originally planning to do was what's called a 1031 exchange, which is just to roll it into other real estate. Um, and there are lots of rules about like you have to do things a specific way to make that happen. And I have to actually meet with a 1031 expert. You can actually outsource to a 1031 specific firm to help you through this process. So um that might happen. Like right now, I have a new tenant moving in, having updated the things that needed to be updated on that side. Like we had a repair that like a big repair that needed to be done. Um, and and it was that the ceiling was gonna fall on somebody's head if we didn't re-drywall it. That's basically what was going on there. So we re-drywalled it. And actually, I was probably gonna have to ask the tenants who were in it to leave so that we could do that. And then they gave notice, and I was like, well, good. Now I don't have to actually give somebody 30 days because there was no way that that repair was gonna happen with somebody living in the apartment. Um, so that actually makes it easier to tell, which is kinda cool. Um, so I don't know if that's gonna happen, but with do less in mind, like, not managing rentals that far away makes sense without a property manager. Now, would I consider going into another market, like in Illinois or Ohio or somewhere? Yes, I would consider that. I would consider spreading out that way, but what would be really cool is if there's a way, and I don't know because I have to talk to the 1031 people. I don't think this is possible. If I can 1031 it into land and put cabins on that land near here, that would be awesome because then I can if a toilet's backing up, I can get out and it's not very far. And I think that the vacation rental sort of arena is better around here and or the sort of agritourism slash community stuff is better. I think there's an opportunity there. I haven't quite put my finger on that. And if that's the case, or even just having, long-term rentals out here, it would be fine. Um, So that's what I'm thinking is simplifying the rental stuff. Or I'm gonna take it and move it to a totally different state with a property manager where it's just a little bit better situation. Because the one thing I will say, the critique of the duplex that I have in Nashville, I own it with somebody else, and this is why I know this. Like I see the financial cash flow situation there is that while rents are really high in Nashville, property taxes are also very high in Nashville, and maintenance is through the roof. And getting, like paying somebody to do maintenance while I get very good deals is still more expensive than maintaining places in some other markets. So the quote unquote monthly positive cash flow is not as high as it could be with that same amount of money in multiple properties. So I could take the same amount of money and get multiple properties in another market, which then actually reduces your risk of all of it being empty at once, and then your cash flow is better. So, and I also think that over time, Nashville's going to Portlandize itself related to rentals. So I think long term, it's probably not great to be a landlord there when they make those changes. And I try to keep track of that pretty carefully. Anyway, that's what's next for LFTN going into 2024. It's nothing crazy. High Lone Star Living. Um, Nothing crazy, but we're gonna do fewer things more. We're gonna do fewer things better. And some of these things I've listed, this is the intention. That doesn't mean all of them happen the way I just said they will happen. These are questions that I'm asking going into the end of the year. And so, as those of you who've listened to the podcast for the last 7 years know, I take time off between Christmas and New Year to reflect, to set myself up to hit the ground running in January. This year, I'm taking 2 whole weeks. The 19th is our last show, except for that we'll run the night before Christmas series, of course. But that's our last like live show or new show that's not previously recorded. And I am shutting down. I'll be sending emails by the end of this week to coffee subscription people about if they mind if I renew their subscription early so that those are also shipped out. And then, I just lost the light. I need to recharge these, and the problem is that my chargers are inaccessible because ooh, it's like a light show. This is fun. Anyway, my chargers are inaccessible because of the construction, so I'm gonna have to go find some chargers for these things, but, it's gonna be a fun year, and I want you to be on the journey with me, giving me feedback and saying, "I want more of this," or "We want less of that," or "We wanna talk more about that." Like, when I hear from you, that helps me know what you wanna see, right? And I wanna share with you the trials and tribulations and successes of some of these decisions. Like, the reason I'm telling you, like, "Should I sell this? Should I sell that? Like, should I sell Hollow Roast? Should I sell rental properties? Should I, like, completely stop doing that so I can put more time in Hollow Roast if I'm not doing rentals?" Like, all of those things are options. And if I wanna build the life that is my life, the life I choose to live on my terms, it's super important to ask those hard questions. And, like, asking myself if I'm gonna sell Hollow Roast is a hard question because I love it so much. And, the redneck might leave if there's not coffee here all the time. I don't know. Anyway, there would still be coffee here. Amy says, "Are bees worse than ducks? 2024 may be the year of the bees." I don't know. I mean, I've had success with both, and I've had failures with both, so I think it depends on what your property supports and what you love to do. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at Hollow Roast, makes a great gift. And I am sending out so many packages this week because a lot of you pre ordered. So thank you. And you said ship after December 13th. I'm turning that option off tomorrow morning, and then it's just gonna if you order it, ship it. We're getting awful close to when things won't arrive by Christmas, but I love sending your gifts. I love writing those custom notes. I've got 20 more custom gift orders going out tomorrow and the next day that somebody ordered. So thanks for that. Anyway, the second way you can do it is become a member. Consider that over at livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, guys, go out. Amy, your ducks will be fine tonight. Make it a great week.